first bin where you put any of your scraps coming out of the garden. Weeds that you pull, large pieces of like sunflowers or stalks from plants. One thing that we ask is that you do not put all of these big branches in like this, but rather that you break them up into smaller pieces. 6-inch length would be ideal, because when they're big like this, they tend to pile up and then they don't decompose very well because there's too much air. They're not touching each other very well. The other thing is that you can add your own kitchen scraps from your home into the first bin here, along with your yard waste from gardening. So if you add anything from your kitchen, you should know you can't put everything from your kitchen into the compost bin. We ask that you only put in scraps from vegetables or fruit, or eggshells or coffee grounds. We especially ask that you do not add any kind of meat or dairy or things that are very greasy. We especially ask that you do not add any kind of meat or dairy or things that are very greasy. Those types of things, although they do eventually decompose, in the meantime, they draw a lot of pests. So they can make the compost bin a very unpleasant place to be around. So we just ask that you don't compost those materials here. We also have a worm composting bin or a vermicompost bin, and we'll show you how to do that. That's another place where you can add kitchen scraps. In this bin here, I wanted to point out one thing definitely not to add to the compost. We just found that someone had thrown out some trash. Although the paper cup and the cardboard around it will compost after a while, that could be okay in here. Not ideal, but could be okay. This plastic is not okay to have in the compost bin. We do have a trash can and a recycling bin located near our garden shed, and we ask that you put any trash and recyclables in there. The compost bin for the garden should be reserved for things that are coming from the garden or your own kitchen scraps. So the last bin on the compost bins we said is where finished compost goes. And we encourage gardeners to use that finished compost in your garden plots. It really improves the soil. How do you get it out of this bin? So these slats can come right out of the front, one by one, to open up the front of the bin down to the level of the finished compost. Right now, our finished compost is pretty low, but there's still some here. And as you can see, you could easily bring a wheelbarrow up and use a shovel and dig out any compost that you want to use, or a trowel and a bucket, depending on how much you need. And it's a really nice finished material. There are still some little bits of sticks here. That won't hurt anything if you go ahead and add that to your garden along with the more fine finished compost here. If you prefer to sift these things out, we also have a compost sifter on site that has a screen, and then any of those materials that you sift out, those bigger sticks, these sorts of materials could go back into the first bin again to go through the whole process to get decomposed and to make this really beautiful finished product for the garden. So this is our recycling system. We start with weeds and stuff that we don't really need, and we turn it into something useful and beneficial and something that helps improve our soil.